This is a podcast from the Angel News Network with author Joel Anastasi interviewing Ascended Master Saint Germain as channeled by Philip Elton Collins.
Greetings, beloved humans on the surface of the planet. Let us begin to further discuss areas that are keeping humanity within a dense frequency of existence. Things are not getting worse. They are getting revealed, uncovered. You must hold each other tight and continue to pull back the veil that separates us, for it is getting thinner and thinner. Humanity is within a cycle of opposites now. You have lost and are regaining collective consciousness of all things at this time. Spiritual liberation is coming late in your 21st century. This will come by knowing your true cosmic origin and your soul's plan within combination of your physical bodies moving in this complete integration. You are receiving higher realm support throughout time because we love you. You're receiving this love, and how much of this love depends upon where you stand in relationship to yourselves, dear ones. Each of you are deprogramming yourselves from forces of the past in order to remain and awaken to the light within you. Your ascension process is all about overcoming separation. Dark and light are twin brothers, allowing you to know them. You are in the process of surrendering your egos to divine guidance, and your leaders need this most of all. What you call God is inside everyone. There's no chosen one. I, Saint Germain, am the spirit that lives in every one of you. I am also the voice inside you that you often forget to listen to. At present, you are realigning your basic assumptions of reality through increasing your consciousness. Spirit that forms all matter is the basis of life. Humanity can now split an atom in half, but you cannot prove the existence of spirit. You must surrender to not knowing. You cannot prove spirit. You can only become spirit itself, which you already are. Most of natural science is a pursuit of still being asleep, supporting humanity's separation from itself. No, dear ones, humanity is the Holy Grail, the container of spirit and God. Your repeated earth lives are a search for self and consciousness. Nations and races are the classrooms to learn consciousness. When humanity and spirit reunite, you will have created your golden age and have graduated from that classroom. It is time to see everything you create, all events, from a positive and negative side, with all being guided by cosmic plans of evolution. Remember, dear ones, there is no death. Nothing is lost in nature. Everything returns to light, including you. As you have heard, humanity is approaching its greatest shift, transmutation with the incoming Christ consciousness energies. All things must change. Science, government, politics, religion, all your disciplines, thoughts, and actions, if you are to advance. Humanity is within the greatest transition. You are the caterpillar that does not know yet that you will become a butterfly. You are diversified versions of one another, but one from the same source. Source, spirit, within everything, returning from the source you originated from. Source is now entering you and reuniting you with collective consciousness. This can create the greatest change ever on earth. Lemurria and Atlantis can rise out of the waters when human consciousness matches theirs. Dear ones, life is the playground and learning center, and you are in process of graduating from the love adversity called Earth. The planet's poles are shifting and changing axes, allowing new cosmic energy to flow through Earth, distributed to everything. There will be many natural events along the way. Earth is a gigantic magnet, attracting everything necessary for you to change. Those who will thrive during these changes will be the ones with increased consciousness. Your world is developing into two groups. One who knows spirit, another who knows only what they see. You can no longer save just yourself or your nation. You can now choose to save the whole world. Taking this introduction into consideration, let us now discuss the topics of your concern. How may I help you?
Well, good afternoon, St. Germain. Thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon. It is good to be here.
Well, it's great to talk with you. You know, I take notes when you begin an introduction, and I was writing furiously to keep up with you, and I can't always read my notes because I write so fast, but you made so many key points. Three of the ones I want to focus on as an introduction to what I wanted to ask you is that you said that humanity was approaching its greatest shift and that we were experiencing a great transition, and you called life a playground and a learning center. And three of the subjects I wanted to ask you about today, rather than me list them myself, I thought I would tell you what it is I wanted to talk about, and perhaps you could give us Spirit's perspective, but also talk about how it relates to the three descriptions you gave us of life. I wanted to talk about the tremendous conflict that we in America are experiencing about the issue of abortion as the Supreme Court approaches the idea of perhaps overruling Roe versus Wade, which gave women control of their bodies with being able to decide not to bring a fetus to fruition. The other has to do with there's been a discussion about some of the expansion of rights that allow gay people and other civil liberties to people, that this conservative Supreme Court may be pushing these rights back, including eliminating the right for gay people to marry. And the third one was about gun control. We're having this horrific, the continuation of the horrifying experiencing in America like nowhere else in the world, about these mass killings with assault weapons and the refusal of the Republican Party to put restrictions on access to these kinds of weapons of war. So I'm handing you these three powerful issues that are issues of separation in America today. And how would you like to deal with them and within the framework that you led in your introduction?
So repeat the first one, and you'll repeat each one subsequently. Repeat the first topic.
Okay, well, let's talk about abortion and the attempt by the Supreme Court to restrict the freedom of women to make their own choices about whether or not to bring a fetus to fruition.
The major issue here is that humanity, a large part of humanity, does not know what human life is or when it begins. Human life does not begin until the fetus takes its first breath of the planet Earth. Once that breath goes into the fetus, and the fetus lets out its first sound, employing sound, motion, then you have life. The issue with abortion, to do it or not doing it, is predicated on the misconception of exactly what life is. There have been individuals who've just arbitrarily decided to say it is at conception or this point or that point. It is none of those. As soon as the breath enters the child, it becomes a human being. Until that point, it is not. The other issue is about control. The other issue is about forces attempting to tell another force exactly what to do and when to do it and why to do it on some made-up premise. That is the core issue regarding it. You will not stop abortions through any man-made law. So it is folly to attempt to consume, it is folly to attempt to do that. If an individual makes a choice to have an abortion, it is in concert with a spirit who has decided not to incarnate into that body. That information is also missing as well, that there is a spiritual being connecting with a mother to decide whether to come here or not. Many pregnancies that are ended prematurely before birth are a spirit has changed their mind about this particular incarnation, and the fetus is released from the body. So those are the basic elements. Does that help you?
Yes, so the claim that this would be murder, you are not supporting that as being a valid argument.
It is not murder until the child takes its first breath. If you kill the child at that point, it is your definition of murder, yes.
Somehow, I am trying to be as objective about this as I can. I can certainly see how appalling it might be to consider ending the life of a fetus that is sort of more fully formed, a late stage development of the fetus. Do you have any perspectives about as the fetus develops and becomes more fully formed, about whether or not that kind of trespasses on any kind of a spiritual correctness at all?
It has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
At that point, it is still an extended organ of the mother's body.
Okay, and what about?
And here is the other consideration, dear one.
Yeah.
If is the intention of that particular life stream to have a soul enter into it to become a human being, there is no force on earth that will stop that process. There's no force on earth that will stop that process if it is the intention for that to take place.
Now, when you say life stream, do you mean the spirit of the child coming in or of the mother?
Correct. The spirit of the child coming in.
Okay.
If it is the intention of that spirit and the destiny of that spirit to have an incarnational cycle on this planet, it will take place.
Archangel Gabriel once referred to an agreement that takes place between the spirit of the child and the spirit of the mother. Could you make a comment about that?
They choose one another. The spirit is in conscious or subconscious communication with the mother. She has an urgency to have a child as a result of that. A male gender is brought into her life in order to impregnate her so that that can physically come forth. Yes, it is an agreement. It is a choice made between a spirit and a mother, consciously or unconsciously.
And so if a mother decides that she does not want to bring the fetus to birth, address that. Well, how is that part of the agreement?
That is reflecting the mutual decision of the spirit and the mother, that they are in communication, and it is mutually decided that that incarnation will not take place at that time. No child will be aborted if it is the intention of that spirit to have an incarnational cycle. The mother will sense this and know this and go full term with the pregnancy.
So what you're then saying is that this is a decision between the mother and the spirit of the child, and it is not the business of an outside force.
And no one trying to make laws to control it happening or not, or taking this truth into consideration. So the reality of what is taking place is not being considered at all.
It's not being considered because it's not understood.
It's not known.
Exactly.
Even when it is explained to many, it's not believed.
It's not believed because that's not what our religions teach.
Or science.
Right, that's true. Well, I'd like to move from that. That was an excellent and informed explanation. I'd like to, we're dealing with what a Supreme Court that many people consider one of the most conservative in years, and there are earlier Supreme Courts that expanded the right of homosexuals to marry, if they choose, the person that they love. And now there's a concern that that will be rolled back by the same court that may roll back the right of abortion. What would you say about homosexuality and the decision and the right of homosexual people to marry?
Human beings come from love and affect our love. It is the building block of all creation. There are many diversified versions and expressions of love, as there are genders which are not fully explained or understood. Again, as with the abortion, what we're dealing with is a great deal of ignorance, of not really understanding what human beings are. The prejudice against one form of love and another is a result of ignorance, or a result of bigotry, or a love of stupidity if it has been explained to them and they're no longer in ignorance, but they still go along with this is not acceptable. You will not stop the expression and the diversity of human love on this planet. You cannot write laws. You cannot create cultural circumstances that say that it's not acceptable. If it is possible in earthly nature, it is normal. I shall repeat that. If it is possible in earthly nature, it is normal, or it would not have been created or possible. So what is missing in the thinking, again, in the attempt to control and tell people what to do for some hidden agenda usually, is a lack of understanding exactly what love is and all the ways it can be expressed. Many of the prejudices against what you call the homosexual community were created through religious laws which prevented the people from reproducing or prevented the churches from controlling certain properties or financial assets. So it became unacceptable. But in reality, it was always going on. It's highly likely, dear ones, and all who are listening to this, that many of the individuals who are resisting this very action are predicating it themselves or wishing to do it themselves. That is not unusual. If a human being is completely comfortable within their sexuality and their sexual identity and how they express it, they could truly care less about someone else's expressions. When you start meddling into the sexual affairs or the reproduction affairs of another individual, it usually is an indication of something unsettled in the individual who wishes to do that. So that is something that can be examined within itself. Does this help you?
It does. That's consistent with what you once said when you said, if you are comfortable with your own sexuality, what do you care about anybody else's?
Why would you be pondering that?
Yes. Well, as a matter of fact, as I think back over the years, some of the torchbearers who were campaigning against the expression of sexuality of other people ended up finding themselves the spotlight being put on them doing exactly the same thing. So it is a reflection of the fact that very often when we are uncomfortable with our own sexuality, we hate it in ourselves, we hate it in others, and make a big deal about it.
When I was in the incarnational cycle of Shakespeare, who you called Shakespeare, I wrote, "He doth protest too much."
Indeed. Well, I think you laid out the parameters of that. I'd like to move to the third and last subject, where we're having horrific experiences going on in the United States, many times more than other countries are experiencing. That is, we've had I think it's over 200 mass shootings so far in this year of 2022, with seemingly hundreds of people being slaughtered by the use mostly of these assault weapons, and the resistance of conservatives and the Republican Party to do anything about it. What would you say about this horrific situation America's trying to deal with?
Well, the first thing you need to take into consideration when this amendment to bear arms was written, the arms at that time were much more primitive than the weaponry you have now. So you have to take that into consideration. The second thing is, if you create a weapon and make it readily available to someone who can kill multiple people in a short period of time, the people who distribute this, whether it's a law or a nation, have to take responsibility for allowing that to be in the hands of people that it was never intended to be in. So the most important thing to consider is when this amendment to bear arms and to protect yourself, or the right to hunt, or whatever it might be, really has little to do with why people are resisting this. It's really become a political toy, a political folly of certain groups to relate and activate individuals who feel that it is necessary to have this weaponry. What is really being discussed is not talking about taking people's rifle or pistol away from them. It's talking about taking away military-style weapons that were never intended for individuals. This must cease, or the consequences of it will become dire for the nation.
I was once observing a group that was demonstrating the military weapons during the Revolutionary War of the United States, and they had muskets. And they said that the maximum number of shots that an expert could get out with a musket would be like 3 in a minute. And when you consider the hundreds of shots that can be released in a minute with assault weapons, it's just absolutely no comparison.
It's some form of insanity that those who wish to protect people bearing arms think that this is continuing to be acceptable. The rest of the world is looking at the United States of America with complete alarm. And it seems completely implausible to the rest of the planet, and we in the higher realms, that this is even an issue. And how it's been taken and distorted about taking someone's right to defend themselves. These weapons that are very advanced need to be controlled. It's like handing a nuclear bomb to your neighbor next door. A young person can walk into a store and buy these weapons as easily as they can buy an apple. So the question that the nation, the United States of America, needs to ask itself, how many more lives have to be lost And remember, in this introduction, we talked about there is no death, that we all return to the light from whence we came. So I would like to say, in order to soothe those who have lost loved ones, to understand that their loved ones are still alive and they're fully in a state of cosmic consciousness. And it was part of their soul plan to surrender their incarnational cycle this time to assist in moving in the right direction, to control these arms that are very deadly. And to think of the children and the adults that have lost their lives in this and sacrificed their lives in this, to see them, their purpose of leaving is to help advance humanity forward. And to know that they have not died in vain, that each life that has left has been to strengthen the resolve to get this right. Does that help you?
Yes, that was a very powerful statement of the fact that it does have meaning for the evolution of our collective consciousness. You know,
and to assist in the pain and anguish of those who have lost loved ones.
Right. Well, Saint Germain, thank you for your perspective on these hot button issues that are front and center in America right now. Is there anything you would add to what we've discussed?
Just to move the gun issue further out into the issue of war, and to realize that war really has never really worked. No side wins, no side loses. It's a lose-lose ultimately. And that you can gain something that you say that you want for a short period of time, or you think you're entitled to by killing and murdering other people. But ultimately, that won't work either. So humanity is really waking up to the point of killing one another through a lack of gun control, or a lack of, as a planet, saying that war is illegal and not allowed by anyone. The planet and humanity are in the process of mastering this. That this is not going to allow you to move forward in your evolutionary ascension process. That through the collective energy, you can make another choice to have these things not be acceptable or, in your language, legal.
Thank you, Saint Germain, for your wisdom.
Let us hope and let us affirm that it helps.
Thank you.